I'm Nate Huey. My major is critical media practices. I feel like I'm very like laid back, but also very sarcastic and not very serious a lot of the time. My sexual orientation is pansexual. So pansexual is like sexual feelings tend to come more from like an emotional connection, and it doesn't really have anything to do with any sort of gender or sexual orientation. I think that I can come off as very like sarcastic and rude a lot of the time, but I think the people who've known me for very long periods of time tend to describe me as like very warm and welcoming and easy to talk to, honest. I think like a lot of the time I see any sort of like Victoria's Secret or any sort of like makeup model or any sort of advertisement like that, I think a lot of the time the message that's conveyed with those sort of advertisements is that like this is what femininity is, and this is like if you are at all feminine, this is what you should look like, and that like femininity has to do with extreme like beauty and perfection and long hair and breasts and things like that that make me feel like I shouldn't display any sort of acts that could be perceived as feminine. It sort of makes me feel like uncomfortable in my own actions and not necessarily my body, I guess. The way that the media displays femininity is sort of as like these very perfect, distinct actions that can only be portrayed by a certain group of people that are displayed in the advertisements that they produce. So like the ideal idea of femininity in something like a Victoria's Secret ad has to have like all these very like uncommon characteristics that like a lot of women and men and anybody, like people just don't have a lot of these characteristics, and they're really honed in on as like perfection, and like that you need to have these characteristics if you're going to display these certain actions that are characterized as femininity. And I mean, in my case, it's just like my own general self-expression. It's like something that when I'm comfortable around somebody, I'm extremely affectionate and sort of like flamboyant and things like that. And I think those characteristics that tend to be more associated with femininity are looked down upon in any sort of person who appears at least in the slightest bit masculine or male. I mean, I've never seen an advertisement that has like a gender-neutral person or a non-binary person or a genderqueer or any sort of gender identity that's non-binary. Like the Dove Real Beauty campaign is like very, like it comes from a place of trying to get people to accept their bodies, but at the same time, it's really very strictly defining what certain bodies should look like, and that if anybody who doesn't identify within a binary displays any of these characteristics, that they're really just seen as other and unnatural and strange. And I think that those types of advertisements are very alienating to people who identify outside of the binary, because it really makes them feel like in any sort of media they're invalid, and that when they feel like they're different from other people, that it's just them not being confident enough in any sort of characteristics that they are displaying or are feeling or something like that, and that they should suppress other feelings that they've experienced. I think media representation is important because I think that when people are when anybody feels something that is different from a lot of the examples that they've seen, I think, you know, there are very strong people who don't question themselves at all and who listen to the way they feel and are much more accepting of the experience that they've had as opposed to looking to other people. But I think most people really tend to question anything that they haven't really been exposed to a lot. And I think that especially in terms of behavior surrounding masculine and feminine like characteristics, that when people display those things outside of their expectations as binary genders, that they look to other people, and when they see those things not present in their actions, they tend to be suppressed. And I think that for a long time I suppressed those things because I was afraid of being different. And the fact that there wasn't any sort of representation like that in the media, the fact that these thoughts and feelings and experiences that I was going through weren't represented to me as a child, I think made me very afraid of being undesired and of being different from everyone else. My name is Nate Huey. I'm genderqueer, and I wish that there were more examples of non-binary individuals in media.